our project was to look at how surveillance is represented in fiction and how these representations are shaping people's attitudes to surveillance in current legal debates. Our background is we're just interested and participate in local and European privacy debates because it's still, as many of you might know, it's still a semi-Wild West kind of territory, because when it comes to companies using our personal data, it's clear that they need our consent in order to do so, especially with GDPR and whatnot. But when it comes to public authorities, it's still in the phase of just grab every data you can and we'll worry about consent later, because the public is pushing back not in a very organized manner, and it's just no one really knows what is okay to be done and what not. And until these matters are settled, I guess we're going to see a lot of debates. I myself am, in my background, I'm a lapsed anthropologist, if I can say so. I used to be in academia and to look at digital fictions and that kind of stuff in my previous line of work. Then I switched to InfoSec. And since both of us are also pretty heavy into geekdom and just joining debates on how surveillance is represented, we thought it would be a great opportunity to just draw upon all these resources in order to do a bit of fictional ethnography, if you will. So, as you know, in a lot of cybersec circles, it's usually a point of fun to see how hacking activities are represented in fiction, especially in movies. Like, everyone is laughing of old but also new movies in which, I don't know, a hacker is shown typing something on a keyboard and bam, at the other end of the network, the target's monitor explodes or something preposterous like that. But we think that we should apply this kind of critical eye and expand the debate a bit into legitimate uses of technology, like the use of technology by police forces in fictional representations, so that we can understand a bit beyond the haha, lol, hackers are being misrepresented. Yeah, so our premise, what drove this research, was that overall the levels of anxiety over technology and how everything is advancing, and nothing like private life is not really private anymore. The anxiety around this is growing, definitely. There are more concerns over privacy and whether technology is spying on us, like even with, I don't know, if you search for it, you will find a lot of debates and inquiries and articles about literally anything. People are even wondering if their smart light bulbs are spying on them. So there's definitely a lot of anxiety to be tapped into around this topic. Some experts, like law and media scholars, say that the battle over privacy is already a lost battle, and most of the debates in these circles are now centered around what are we going to do in a post-privacy world. Like, the best case scenario, privacy is going to become some sort of commodity, and the only way for the private citizen to be empowered with their own privacy is to decide how and for how much to sell it and to whom. Others are still rather optimistic. Our goal in all of this was to look again at how these debates are influenced by the misrepresentations of surveillance in fiction. As you will notice, we focused more on movies and TV shows, although fiction is obviously a broad term which should encompass other forms of art as well, just because they are more present in general the public perception and public view. Also, when we're dealing with books instead of movies, the way technology is represented is clearly with a sci-fi focus, or it's more rarely it happens in books for technology to be misrepresented and to claim that this is something real and which is happening now. In movies, it's more often to find misrepresentations about how police is currently using technology, for example. So this is why we focused more on video content. Okay, what are the current debates? I'm sure most of you are familiar with this, but we just felt like it's a good opportunity to, when we're laying the premises, to bring everyone up to speed on how things stand. So in North America and Europe, there are a lot of initiatives where citizens seem to be fighting back against new tech, which they are perceiving as infringing on their privacy, and they are winning. Generally, there's a lot more anxiety in this area of the world and a lot more pushback, but also probably because there can be pushback compared to other areas of the world in which governments are less permissive with dissent. There are examples of citizens winning this kind of thing, like there was a Sidewalks Lab neighborhood specially designed in Toronto in collaboration with Google, and which was supposed to be this super idyllic neighborhood of the future with lots of smart street lamps and that kind of stuff, but citizens just found it creepy and refused to use it, and they won, basically. The San Francisco ban on facial surveillance technology is another great example of how people are pushing back and winning and so on. Apparently, only 45% of Americans say that their privacy is more important than national security. In Europe, 70% of people are more concerned with their privacy over their country's security. But the numbers are growing in both countries. Also, apparently, European citizens are most likely to be spied upon or surveyed in their private lives compared to American citizens, so maybe this is why the anxiety is greater in Europe. Another funny thing which we found looking at all debates and statistics was that apparently Europeans tend to be more trusting with their governments and more distrusting towards companies using their data, while in America, in the USA, it's the other way around. People trust their government. The other way around. People in the US trust companies. They can give their personal data for, I don't know, a coupon for a free latte or something, but not the government. In the UK, there's an entire war on facial surveillance technology, as some of you might know, because the police and public surveillance cameras have started using this on a mass scale, and people are protesting this year a lot against this, not winning yet. There are a lot of critiques against facial surveillance technology being biased and only working on white dudes and so on, but the concern of UK citizens is mainly just that their privacy is being infringed. The UK government has even released some sort of reassurance public statements around the lines that we are not living in a mass surveillance state. Don't worry, it's okay. And still people are protesting. So the situation is pretty serious if a state actually goes to that kind of length to reassure their citizens. There's also a matter of a fine being applied to a gentleman who refused to allow the police to take pictures of his face for no reason, just to add him into the database. The story has a lot of examples. There are also several digital advocacy groups meeting performance art who are finding creative ways of pushing back against facial surveillance technology, like CV Dazzle and others. I think you've seen them in the news. A lot of guys who are finding ways to fool the algorithms, either by designing a baseball cap with little dots of light projected on the person's face, or scarves with digital faces printed on them, and other kind of tricks which for now seem to be fooling facial surveillance technology. I am focusing more on this kind of technology because it's the hotbed right now for privacy and surveillance debates, because since it's a new technology, it's obvious that people are more anxious about it than to other older and previously established technologies. In other areas of the world, Asia and the Middle East, there are again problems, but they only generate backlash in the West. In the West, there are a lot of people who are protesting for these things, again, probably because they can. You are probably all familiar with the protests regarding the Uyghur minority in China, which are being harassed and super surveyed by public authorities through the use of facial recognition software. But in other areas of the world in which this technology has been widespread adopted, there are also positive uses of it, and no one seems to have a problem, and it's still like a good thing. For example, in the United Arab Emirates and in Singapore, it has a lot of citizen positive effects, like you can get immediately identified when you enter a place of business and be greeted with already your favorite products, orders. It just speeds things up. Or elders who are suffering from confusion, dementia, and that kind of stuff, and who are wandering around the streets, not remembering how to get home, they can get more easily identified by public surveillance CCTV cameras, and their families can get alerted, that kind of stuff. In Japan, it's closer to the way it's used, facial surveillance technology. It's a bit closer to our idea of dystopia, I guess, because they even have like an application which is used in workplaces, which alerts you as a worker. You get a little buzz if you're not smiling enough. Which is, in the West, this would probably not fly, but oh well. And of course, the much debated app in Iran, which alerts you if your female family members are attempting to travel, so you can restrict and control their movements. All of these are heavily criticized in the West, but it does not stop technology from being used in abusive ways, of course. As I said, little to no backlash from the public in these areas. But in the West, the backlash goes on multiple fronts. The interesting part, and this is something we heavily focused on in our research, is that when people protest surveillance technology in the West, they tend to use dystopian metaphors. It's like a go-to. I will also give you examples a bit later. Like employees are even protesting against the companies who are continuing to do research into facial surveillance technology or who agree to sell it to governments. For example, Google agreed, due to employee pressure, to stall facial recognition software and to stop providing it to public authorities, but said that they don't know for how long they will be able to do that because they might be pressured into it at some point. Microsoft also halted their activities but didn't make any promises. And Amazon continued, but now faces some investor trouble and more employee pressure and protests. This is a sample of the movies and TV shows which we looked at, first and foremost. Even some of them are full dystopias, like Equilibrium or V for Vendetta. There's plenty of stuff which is featured in all of these movies. This is just a small sample. I'm sure there are many more, but yeah, we can't watch everything, every police show there is out there. But there is this stuff which the police can do, which is pretty fantastical. And it's not the way things work in real life, but because it's featured so casually, people actually believe that the police can do this, that this technology is already in use, and they feel even more outraged about it whenever they enter a privacy versus surveillance debate. For example, you have in these movies and TV shows, you have a sketch of a potential bad guy drawn by hand by a police artist, and you just scan it, you enter it into a scanner, and bam, in the next moment, the suspect's entire information, his real identity appears on the screen. Or if they have a small recording of someone's voice, they can just run it through a database, and again, they just find out immediately who this person is, somehow implying that the police already knows how all of our voices sound like. Fingerprint scanning also works magically in all these movies. Like, they have a fingerprint and immediately they scan it and get a result. They don't even wait like for a few hours as it happens in real life, and so on. Why do we think that these pop culture portrayals are relevant? As I said, the fears of dystopia are very present in all of these debates. For example, the machine learning software which was created by the NSA to identify terrorists was dubbed Skynet, and in protest initially, but the name actually stuck. In a 2014 protest against mass surveillance, which took place across 15 countries, people used the Guy Fawkes mask, which was popularized by V for Vendetta. The Stop Watching Us coalition, which is based in the US and which is basically an anti-surveillance NGO, chose the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings as its logo, and they also use this saying in their protests, like they have it on signs, "Stop watching us, Sauron." So the government is basically Sauron in this analogy. It's true that dystopian metaphors are used in protests in the West, not just when it comes to protesting technology, but also about anything else. In the protests against the Alabama abortion law earlier this year, for example, they used costumes like in the in the HBO TV show based on Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, and so on. And in countless other niches. I've written them all there, and of course you can read it in our paper. I will need to hurry a bit, I think, through the slides. So it is true that in Western cultures, the dystopian metaphor is the go-to whenever they're confronting tech advancements, and not only tech advancements, anything that requires a debate in the public. But apparently, we are wary as a culture of slippery slopes which can lead to a dystopian state. It was funny that I also ran across an interview from police officer Barney Doyle, who admitted that he is bothered by fictional representations of police because they are shaping public expectations. Of course, he meant it like these movie and TV show policemen and detectives are so effective and so superhero-like that the public is expecting us to move like that as well. But as he said it, of course, this applies in the other way as well. It is shaping public expectations of how police work. So if you have any questions for me, I will gladly take them. You can reach me at my email, and you can also visit the website of my company and our blog and whatnot. Thank you.